So, guys, we have an amazing speaker right here today who is an enthusiast in the field of agriculture and fisheries, Rumaitha Al Busaidi. She is actively working with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries Wealth. She looks to advance the landscape of business innovation and entrepreneurship as a solution to alleviate unemployment issues and promote food security. Rumaitha also represents Arab Youth as a European Commission One Young World Peace Ambassador, a program that connects young leaders to work on preventing and countering violent extremism and building peace in the communities. Adding to her list of feats, Rumaitha is not only a part of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community, but she is also an ambassador for the Institute for Economics and Peace, which aims to change the course of how the world thinks about peace through research and academia. Rumaitha is also renowned for being the first female football analyst in the Arab world, achieved through her passion for football, radio presenting, woman empowerment, passion for football, and social issues. She is also the youngest Omani woman to step foot on the South Pole. Rumaitha is an all-round award-winning personality in sports, social responsibility, and media with a wide range of passions in climate change, women's empowerment, marine science, and entrepreneurship. This session will be moderated by Dr. Hoon, Associate Professor of University Brunei Darussalam. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rumaitha Al Busaidi.
Hello,
hey everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning, Rumaitha. It's good to have you. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
It's afternoon here, so
good afternoon to all of you then.
Sorry for the wait. We're just a little bit behind time, but we should be able to catch up fairly quickly. Rumaitha, you are speaking to us from Oman. I've just realized that Oman and Brunei actually have a lot of similarities. We're both an absolute monarchy, oil-rich, high-income economy, and we have a very young and youthful population. And very high literacy rate. I think one of the exception for that similarities is that Oman has a very high fertility rate. So the women there are very fertile. So I read that they're around 3.7, fertility rate of 3.7 per woman per year. Whereas Brunei is now, declining in its fertility. So we have 1.8, where the replacement fertility rate is about 2.1. So we're not replacing fast enough. So in that sense, Brunei is slowly aging. These youth that you're seeing here, they are going to be a very rare breed in the future. So they better make good use of their life. I want to find out from you, Rumaitha, how does it actually feel like to grow up as a Omani woman, especially for Bruneian here? We probably don't know a lot about Oman. So give us a bit of an idea how your childhood and your growing up is like, and then what is the significance of being a female soccer player and a soccer analyst, and also the youngest Omani woman to set foot on the South Pole in Oman? What does that actually mean?
Sure. A lot of questions all at once, so I'll try to kind of combine them into a story. Growing up actually you mentioned it very rightfully so, that we're such a young population, such a big population as well in terms of the number of young people that you see. So the average family size in Oman is around 8. So you have pretty much 8 brothers and sisters. We're 9, so I technically fall into the average category of 8 siblings. It was actually, so I would not know to compare it to any other place, because this is where I grew up. And I would say I grew up in a very fun, holding environment where you had so many people that were giving you different points of views of what type of life you need to lead. But we're all very traditional still, so we really stick to gender roles. We still assume that women should stick to specific types of roles in society versus what men are supposed to do. That's slowly changing with our generation as well. You said that the fertility rate is 3.7. I think that's lower than how it used to be. It was even bigger than that. So more and more people are actually taking on to education and empowering themselves that way to actually make better decisions for themselves. But the holding environment in Oman was very welcoming. We are known as people who are very hospitable. We love people, we love to host people. So I grew up in a household where we always used to host guests. We always have an open door policy. So people can walk in anytime. It's just so natural for us to actually live in that sort of environment, even in the capital, which is the most advanced in terms of a metropolitan area than the other areas. For a woman to pursue sports is not easy in our community. We still believe that women are supposed to, so the perception is women are fragile and shouldn't be pursuing sports because it's not good for their nature. So for someone to say that I want to pursue soccer or football was very weird for a lot of people. If it wasn't for the support of the men in my family, I don't think I would have continued pursuing the sport. My dad and my grandfather played a big role in pushing me forward to actually continue playing the sport when I was younger. But that all obviously changed as you grow up and you hit puberty, and you're a woman now, so you're not supposed to actually play with the boys. So it's still something that we're still struggling to this day to actually get the society to accept, the community to accept that women can actually pursue sports as men can. A lot of the perception as well is that if you wear the hijab, if you're covered, then you're not supposed to, for the sanctity of religion, you're not supposed to be doing something that's against it. But I think with the invention of sports hijabs, I think everyone now is okay with the fact that there's women that actually can play sports and still be modest. But yeah, I think there's still a long way to go when it comes to actually changing the perception of society when it comes to women participating equally in society, particularly when it comes to sports and other things that are not usual for women to do. It's not usual to find a woman marine scientist, for instance. It's not usual to find a woman who dives in general. So there's a lot of things that I've been treading or trailblazing in places that not many women before have been. And it's quite a heavy weight to kind of carry to actually be the perfect role model for the future generation to actually come in. But I always take it as a task to actually open doors. So hopefully more and more people can actually come in and pursue it. But yeah, I think that in general will sum up the answer to your question, I think.
Wow, well, that's really interesting. How do you manage people's judgments and the gaze, from the society and relatives and so on, who might actually think that you are not feminine enough?
I think I've grown very attuned to the fact that I need to ignore as much as I can. And one of the tips that I will give everyone in life, be it you're young, be it you're much more older, is never let people actually define what you actually want. For a lot of us, we live in, and I think it's the same in Brunei as it is here, we live with a lot of expectations on what you should do, that we tend to forget a lot of the times to ask ourselves the question of what do I want and what does it mean to make myself actually happy. I'm a very big believer of you need to make yourself happy and you need to be in love with yourself more than opening up your arms and the doors for someone else to actually for other people to love other people and to really appreciate what other people think. So I think for me, the biggest thing was actually to ignore as much as I can, even though it's very difficult at times, but not to react to what they think you should do. And for a lot of people, yes, they think it's not feminine for me to do a lot of those things, but I don't see this harm in it. So I just pursue and find places where I can actually get the reaffirmations that I need, be it from my family, be it from my friends, from my support system, who just are the ones that tell you, just ignore what people say. You are doing the right thing. You need to remind yourself as well that you're capable of doing the things that you want to, and that the path that you take doesn't necessarily mean it will be easy. There will be hardships on the way, but it's so worth it if you actually pursue the thing that you want at the end.
I think that's where selective listening is actually quite a good skill to master. Rumaitha, you have excelled in so many different things in life, both professionally and also in your personal life, you know, as a scientist, environmental activist, a gender advocate, a sports commentator, and also an athlete yourself. How did you actually juggle all these different priorities?
So I would start off by saying that I believe I am, and I think a lot of more and more young people actually have this in them. We're all multi-potentialites, meaning that we have a lot of affinity to so many different things, but we're good at all of them. So it's not necessarily being distracted as much as you are passionate for a lot of things that you want and you want to excel in all of them. And for me, that's how it governed my life. Like, I love this, let me just do it. And then something else came about. It's like, okay, I could do this too. And I think for me, or very early on during my high school and undergrad years, it was basically taking on more than one thing at once and being able to juggle them by managing your time. And I think once you actually have that skill very early on in life, it's very easy for you to kind of continue doing that. The downside to that, though, is because you're so used to doing more than one thing at once, you end up being bored very quickly if you don't have anything that takes on your time. And that's, I think for me, that was the curse, which is why I do so many different things and wear different hats. But it's because I have managed so well to manage my time that I can actually make time for things that are important to me. And I think everyone defines what's important to them differently. For some people, it's really taking that alone time and really recharge and watch Netflix and just do nothing. Some people really, for me, it's like doing sports and really crazy activities. That's where I actually find comfort. So, and I think with how things are changing with the basically future of work and the skills that we need, I think more and more employers, more and more things that you actually do in juggling different things is actually much more needed than if you were just specialized in just one simple thing and that's it. That's if that's something that you like, sure. But I think with more and more of different skills that are needed and technology that is coming up, you need to mutate to how the demands of the future is going to be. And I believe that this is a skill that you really need as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're totally right. Time management, it's something that is so useful for both, you know, I mean, in terms of the youth for school and also later on for the professional life. When you were young growing up, though, Rumaitha, how did you identify your passion or your aspiration when you were growing up? Since when did you know that, you know, you want to be an athlete or you want to be a marine scientist and so on? Did it just come naturally to you, or was it something that you sort of strategize and try to plan out, you know, with a roadmap in front of you growing up?
So it's very interesting. I think it's a mix of both. I always knew I wanted to be a marine scientist since I was 10. And the main reason behind that was my dad is a big fan of the National Geographic. So back in the day, before the internet, you used to receive a magazine on a monthly basis if you have a subscription. And when I was 10, I don't remember when exactly, one of the issues was actually a cover page of a marine turtle, a green turtle that actually was taken in Oman. And that's when my horizons was very opened completely. It's like, wow, we have something like this, and I actually have to go and figure out more. And what else do we have that I don't know? And I think I got fixated with that so much that I actually manifested that this is the career that I want. But it wasn't what my parents or the family wanted. They all assumed because you're a brilliant student, you get good grades, you'll be a doctor. And that was completely not what I wanted. So you could say that I somehow strategized to be a marine scientist, but kind of tried to please my parents somehow. So I actually ended up in my freshman year in medical school, and then I switched to actually do what I wanted. And that actually caused a big uproar in the family. My mom was really upset. Like, she didn't speak to me for a few months because she was really upset. That was like, what? You're not going to be a doctor? You're going to be what? I have no idea what this is going to be. What is this that you're studying? You'll be a fisherwoman? We don't have fisherwomen in Oman. Like everyone who fishes men. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what I am doing. But in the same time, like sports came very naturally to me. That was something that I really excelled in. I was picked out from schools, like my teachers all like, you have to continue in this path. And I just naturally was something that I loved and continued on the path until then. So I think it's a mix of both. Like if it's something that you really are passionate about, even though like you would assume at that age of like 17 or 16 that everything is against you, especially when parents are still making the decisions for you. But there's still a way. When you believe that there's a way, you will definitely get there, even if it's later in life. You'll definitely end up doing what you love if it's something that you really, really believe in your heart that you want to do.
Let me switch gear a little, back to try to connect with the previous panel that talked about environmental change and climate issues. We were told that Brunei actually only plays about 0.025% in terms of its impact globally. So what does 0.025% actually mean? You know, I mean, like, does it actually matter if we actually in Brunei conserve the environment, because you know our impact is so little?
I think every little bit counts. I mean, in a lot of the climate negotiations that you hear, we heard about COP26 and all that. That argument is always used, especially with countries that don't produce as much, saying like, okay, if I'm not doing this, it's not my fault. I'll just continue leading life as is, business as usual. But then again, what's very paradoxical is the ones who actually have the least impact are the ones that are most impacted by climate change. Oman's contribution as well in comparison to the major producers is quite small as well, but we actually suffer a lot of the brunt when it comes to cyclones. We've never had cyclones actually since before 2007. This was nothing. Nobody ever knew what a cyclone was. And now since 2007, we've had over 11. That it's become normal that you might have at least a minimum of 2 cyclones a year. And that's not fair. But again, the message is we are all sharing the same fate. So every little bit counts. And it's not necessarily only the behaviors of me as an individual and what I pass on. It's my role as well as a citizen of my country to actually advocate and try my level best to pass on the message to the big producers in the country, to the government, that we need to do better. And the main reason behind that is if you lead by example, the best thing is everyone else around you will lead and follow your example. So you might be the smallest country that has the least impact, but your neighboring countries as well will follow your example because you did something amazing and they will feel inclined to follow you. So there's always that. Climate change is something that will impact us all. And if we don't act, there's no future, not only for us, for our future grandkids. Would we have future grandkids to actually pass on the planet to? That would be a question as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to ask you one last question before I open up the floor for questions. I'm sure most of the audience here have got a lot of things to ask you. You're currently working for a ministry in Oman, and I understand that, you know, as you mentioned, Oman is a very traditional society, and so how did you gain a seat on the table with all the other men colleagues, right? Was education something that is helpful? You know, what is the role of education in giving you a voice in Oman?
Oh, education played a big role because even though a lot of people still use the excuse that you're young, you're a woman, you don't know much as this, then you kind of just throw back your expertise in the field and nobody can argue with that. You're an expert in what you do. So even if they argue with you, you're the one that actually at the end of the day, they will come back to actually say, is this right? Is this wrong? And I'm actually in this exact position at work at the moment. So I'm the only senior female in my workplace. And because I am the technical expert, the others aren't, they actually all come back to me and say, can you review this and confirm if this actually makes sense or not? So yes, education, yes, building your knowledge not only in your field, but also understanding how you deal with people, especially men, and how you practice, like you said, selective listening and active listening, and how do you up your game when it comes to negotiating, and how do you negotiate on behalf of other people in communities is very important to actually get yourself in the seat on the table. And as a woman, I would actually pass on this advice to all is always use your voice. For a lot of us, we tend to shy away when men are talking, that we're not really as assertive enough, but always remind yourself that, and it's very easy for women, and this is scientifically proven as well, that women are better negotiators for people on behalf of people rather than themselves. So always remind yourself that it's not only you, you're speaking on behalf of every single woman who's going to walk on that door and the young people who are going to be taking on those positions as well. And you find your voice very, and it's a very strong voice as well that you can actually make a difference. But I think confidence is very important. For young people as well who are in the decision-making table, the imposter syndrome plays a big role, that you find yourself asking yourself, it's like, why am I here? I don't deserve to be here because everyone else is older and knows so much than I do. But always remind yourself that you are there for a reason, and that you're representing not only you, representing everyone else. And soon enough, you actually are able to advocate and speak your truth as well.
That's really, really good advice. I'm going to open the floor up for questions, and I can see a row of hands already. Maybe let me invite a female, participant first. Is Khwarizmi a guy or girl?
Hi, I am a guy.
Okay, you wait for your turn. You'll be the next.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, Michelle, could you start first with your question, and then we get back to Khwarizmi.
Thank you. I was just kind of wondering, like, how did you react when people, specifically people who were like close to you, were against the idea of you like wanting to pursue sports and stuff?
Those people are no longer my friends. That's one thing. If they're friends who actually don't believe in you, then why do you need them to be in your support system? At the end of the day, friends and people that you surround yourself with are the ones that should actually advocate for you. For family members, I've been very clear on, obviously you can't cut ties with family, they're family, but I've had those uncomfortable conversations on really asking them why they think that I don't deserve to actually do this. And it's very interesting. Most of the time you end up speaking the same language, but they come from a place of fear for you. And it comes out very arrogant or very like you take it very offensively, but they actually are just caring for you. And this is the way that they care, saying that you don't deserve to do this because I'm afraid you'll be hurt. So you just continue having those conversations until they understand why it's important for you and your side of the story. But I'd only do that with family members because it's important for me to maintain that relationship. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Rizmi.
Hi, Miss Rumaitha.
Hi.
I have one question for you. How does a youth that doesn't have a dream that wants to find a job that is suitable for them?
So you don't have, I still didn't understand the question. You have a dream or you don't have a dream? Sorry.
Well, I don't have a dream currently, but how can I find my dream job? Like, how can I know that job is suitable for me?
Okay. Okay. So I think the first thing is ask yourself what you're looking out of this job. What's the target? Why do you want this job? How would that job make you feel? It's very important to take into account your mental health, because most of the time for a lot of us, especially when we start off, we have this dream job of working in like the biggest bank or whatever, but the environment there is so toxic and so competitive that it doesn't suit you. So I think for me, I only realized what my dream job is way later in life, by the way, and not really early on. I went through the series of really toxic environments where my mental health really took a blow. I didn't perform the way I should, even though it's something that I love to do, but I ended up not loving it. So it's very important to take that factor in. And also the thing, I think the last thing is where would you see yourself go after this job? Will this help you achieve the goal that you have in mind? Even though it's not a dream, but you might have immediate goals that you want, be it financial, be it security, whatever it is. Does it help you achieve that goal or not? It's very important to ask yourself that question as well.
Yep.
Very sound advice.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Next question, Ashia. Yes, go ahead, Ashia.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to say that it's an honor to meet you here, even if it's virtually. So for me, I am a Pakistani. So I come from like the same Middle Eastern area, you know. So in my society, there's still the same stigma as to like what a woman can do, what a woman can't do. So I feel like I can relate to you a lot. Like, even though my family is very supportive of me, there's always that bit of a society that still has that old mindset on what a woman can do. I mean, even though how much our society has progressed, there's still that group of people, right? And as you've mentioned, you just ignore what they say as to what you're doing, especially as a women rights activist. I feel like you can give me a really good advice on this, that what do you say to yourself? Because I feel like you can ignore to a certain extent until it gets to you. So what do you say to yourself to keep yourself mentally strong?
I think the first thing, so it really depends on each person and what they do. I like to write, so I tend to write diaries for myself. On the days that I actually feel at the top of my game, I just write an entry for myself so I can keep it aside, that whenever I'm actually down, I just go back and remind myself on the things that I actually did. So it's really important for you to remind yourself on the quick wins that you've done, where you reached where you are right now because of a lot of things that you've struggled and passed through and actually achieved. So always, I think for a lot of us, because we're high achievers as well, and we always want to do what's next, we tend to forget what the little achievements that we've done that actually made us reach where we are. So for me, whenever I actually go through that, I just go back to all those victory notes that I have and remind myself that I did all of these things and I deserve to actually take time to relish in them and really appreciate myself. And it's so good to actually do this exercise alone, depending on how you meditate, basically, if it's prayer, if it's going out on a travel or by the beach, by the park, but just give yourself some time. And we also tend to, and exactly, I totally understand when you say ignore and forget about it, not necessarily forget about it, but allow yourself to feel. Like if it really makes you feel sad, just allow yourself to feel sad, because you don't want to bottle it down until it erupts into something else. So I think giving yourself permission to feel that and just say, yeah, today I don't feel like doing anything and I just want to sit and just process these feelings. So then the next time you actually feel those feelings, you remind yourself of what you did before. And that's a really helpful exercise to kind of train your brain as well and your heart on how you handle yourself in a healthy way, rather than just completely not really dealing with those feelings.
The self-awareness is really important. I mean, now with so much, social media surrounding us, and kids are always trying to seek for this approval addiction, that every single thing they do will have to lead to a like on their social media. Otherwise, they'll feel really depressed and so on. I mean, just shifting into the space of the self and allow yourself to immerse in there and then be in touch with the feeling is really important. Hati, you have a question?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. And I would just like to say how amazing you are. My question is, have you ever talked to someone full of wisdom that gave a convincing reason on why you're on the wrong path, which actually made you believe that what you're doing is not right? And if so, how did you get yourself to believe in yourself again?
Okay, so I've had my own grandfather who really contested the idea of me going to the South Pole, for instance. He gave all really convincing reasons, by the way, like you're not fit enough. I agree, I was not fit enough. Are not strong mentally. I agree, nobody's going to be strong mentally to spend 56 days in the cold. But they were all things that, for me, I actually took them on as a challenge and said, well, you know what? If I can't do all of this, what if I can? What if I can prove to myself and to you that I can actually do it, and I'll go ahead and do it? What will happen again? Most of the time, when you actually confront that by saying you admit that you're not, but you'll work on yourself, the answer that the person is so disarmed that they have no idea what to say, because their aim is to actually push you away. And now they are actually very shocked that whatever they're saying is actually making you more affirmed to their idea, that you will work on yourself to reach that goal. And seeing their reaction is mostly enough to remind yourself that you're actually strong enough to continue on that path. And you always tend to remind yourself as well that a lot of the things that you'll end up doing in life might be easy for a lot of people, for some people, but it's not easy for you. And you know that there are hardships on the way that you need to overcome. And also prepare yourself mentally as well on what would happen if I actually don't succeed. You're preparing yourself for all the criticism that you might get, right? But the good thing is you always also, within that process of you going through it, remind yourself that no, you're capable of actually doing it. And if you fail today, you can get up tomorrow and do it because you were able to do that difficult thing that was there. So I think when people actually give you really convincing reasons of why, just acknowledge it and say, okay, I agree that I actually am very convinced that it's wrong, but how about I work on it anyway? And if I fail, I fail. And if I succeed, what will your action be? Will you support me after I succeed? And most of the time people will say, I will support you. And this actually comes back to the same thing that I said before. A lot of people kind of come and express themselves in the wrong way. And it's out of fear and care for you, but they don't know how to say that. And for a lot of us, we're not really trained to actually be more emotionally in tune to say, I'm afraid for you. So I'll bring all of these other things to convince you otherwise, because I can't say that I'm afraid of you, so for you. So I think just embrace it early on and just admit if you are really convinced, say, yeah, I'm convinced, but I still want to do it. So will you support me while I go through this or not? And you'll see that their actions actually change.
Well, we still have a row of questions, but I was told that we are running out of time. So, Rumaitha, to end the session, unfortunately, guys, I won't be able to take your questions. I have to close the floor. Just to end the session, Rumaitha, could you give us a piece of advice for the youth, for a message for them to take home with?
So I would say is always believe in the beauty of your dreams. I mean, what you dream of is completely different on what your brother, your sister, or even your best friend dreams of. So everyone has a different set of dreams. So really believe in them. You're the only one that knows deep down in themselves that they can actually achieve them. And what happens is when you believe in them, you end up manifesting a lot of things throughout your life that will end up achieving it. Not necessarily immediately. It's not like social media where you get immediately a like, but throughout your life, you will actually realize when you sit and reflect that, oh, I actually did a lot of things because I believe in that. And that really closed the gap to where you want to reach. So always believe in that, and don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, tell you that it's not worth dreaming. Even if it's as simple as doing something very, very hilarious for other people, just go ahead and do it. Don't let anything stop you in believing in yourself.
Thank you so much, Rumaitha. Really, really appreciate it. I mean, it's been such an inspiring 40 minutes. You know, I'm sure we can go on and on. And what was really wonderful in the sharing was that, you know, you've got so many amazing achievements, but then, you know, rather than talking about yourself, you're really giving, you know, the audience a lot of advice from your heart and focusing on them and their future. And that is what, you know, a true leader someone who is inspiring is about. So we thank you so much for your time, and we thank you for your presence. We wish you all the best with everything that you're doing in changing the world. Thank you, Rumaitha. Hope to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. So yeah, don't stop believing in yourselves. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll hand the floor back to the MC.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rumaitha, as well as Dr. C.Y. Hoon. An inspirational icon indeed. It's very easy in this day and age to feel very insecure about our goals and purpose and to question our place in all of this. But to quote Ms. Rumaitha, never let anyone define what you actually want. Other people's expectations of us should not be our standard of how we hold ourselves. So everyone, to break boundaries and go beyond our limitations, we must first believe in our potential and in the beauty of our dreams. Now, before we push that pause button, I believe Imani has some exciting news for all of you. Imani, do share the news.